Yeah, he'll be here shortly though. How's it going? Okay, this has been acting finicky, so I had to start it right now. Just the
Live
live
stream?
stream.
Okay, alright.
Because I'd rather it just be going instead of,
Right.
any interruptions or anything.
Okay.
Do you need help with anything else?
I think that's it.
Okay. Alright, perfect. Well, if you need anything, always just reach out.
Okay, thanks.
Of course.
Come on in, if you can sign in real quick. So we'll just wait a few minutes until the others show up. So how'd you find out about this one?
My friends kept telling me about Capital Factory, and I saw it on the top of the website.
Oh, okay. Wow. Have you traveled before?
No. I mean, I've traveled before, but not for work.
Okay. So do you know anything about digital nomad lifestyle or anything about what they do? Are you here for nomad lifestyle?
Here. Oh, great.
You're here for nomad lifestyle?
Yeah.
Yep. Here, if you can sign in real quick.
Yep. Is this more of a presentation or?
It's gonna be interactive, so there's gonna be a lot of like back and forth.
Okay.
We're gonna cover like this is the presentation that covers a lot of like the technical stuff. There we go.
Hey.
So what is it about?
So this topic tonight is gonna be about the finance, it's all the legal stuff tonight. This is the one that a lot of people have questions about throughout the year.
Yeah.
Just because like when they travel, the things that always pop up is like, how do I deal with taxes, and how do I deal with visas, and how do I deal with immigration issues, and even though like I try to cover some of it, like this is the class that we go into the details for, right? All the other classes are sort of like, you could say the fun stuff, right? About the lifestyle. But this is the stuff that most people have a misunderstanding about the lifestyle, right?
Alright, so it's specifically for American citizens, right?
No, this is for anybody.
For anybody, but
Right.
for legal tax.
I cater to everyone.
Right.
So even if you're not a US citizen, like, it still applies based on the country that you're traveling through, right? So whatever country you're going through, you still have to obey their tax laws.
Okay.
Right? So like if you're a British citizen going to Dubai, it doesn't matter because they don't have the same rules that we do, right? So you're not gonna pay any taxes there. Whereas like if you're an American citizen and you go to Dubai, it doesn't matter where you go, you're always gonna pay taxes, right?
Yeah.
And if you open any bank account anywhere, I don't care where you think it is, you have to report it. And if you don't, that's your fault, right? So this is the stuff that gets technical just because like there's so many rules to follow.
Yeah.
Again, based on where you travel and the regions you're covering on your lifestyle, you do have to have a personal CPA that is familiar with expat taxes and finances. Otherwise, you're just gonna shoot yourself in the foot, you know. And depending on how many countries you travel through per year, you better have a good CPA who understands your finances.
What do you mean CPA?
Your accountant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
So.
If we have accountant, so we need this information. If we have accountant and we don't decide it for, you know, financial stuff because we have an accountant, so there's like
As long as they're familiar with international tax laws and stuff like that, right? If they're familiar with expat laws and finance rules and all those things, then yeah, you're okay if you can afford to pay that person, right?
Okay.
Most digital nomads are not at that level that I deal with, right?
Okay.
They're not making 6 figures to $1 million a year. These are expats that make enough just to live comfortably, right?
Okay.
So, and if you're not doing anything in the Caribbeans, then yeah, it's very different, right? So, but yeah, so this is the agenda for tonight. So we're gonna kinda cover these different areas. So visa, immigration, taxes, compliance, business registration, contracts. I'm gonna go into some news. I always cover news because most people are not looking for digital nomad news, right? Most people think of news as politics and business and things like that. Nobody's looking for digital nomad news, right? And yet there's a lot that goes on just because more people are working remote, right? So as you travel and as you work remote, there are a lot more things that happen, right? So the yearly agenda for the rest of the year, right? So I've been doing this for about 2 years now. So for October, November, and December, next month will be cultural shock, adjusting to different, places that you're gonna travel through, right? Many people think like, hey, I'll be here, I'll be fine, won't affect me, right? Until you find out, oh, it will affect you, trust me. Connections. November tends to be the fun one, right? Because this is all about networking around the world, right? So I show you all the fun community events, the parties, the festivals, things like that that are geared towards digital nomads. And then December will be basically scaling your success as a nomad, right? So what tools and resources do you need to be able to grow as a digital nomad when you're traveling, right? So that's more or less what that covers for the rest of the year. And this right here, I cover introductions, right? So who am I? So I've been running this for a long time, right? So I run 2 groups here, right? So I run Digital Nomad, which is people who travel and work from a laptop. And then the other program that I run, which is next Monday, is the rise of one-person businesses. So that one right there is not traveling, but you're still working for yourself, right? So I've been doing this, and I've already taught over 1,000 students through my programs. I've had over 300 different types of business training classes of all varieties, right? So I do cover automation. I do a lot of training in that stuff. The only thing I have a disclaimer about is automation does replace people. So if that is your goal, by all means. If it's not your goal to be replaced, yeah, that's a little harder of a conversation to have, right? So that's more or less what I do on that side. Now I want to know who you are, right? So on the other side right here, this is your name, where you're from, and what you're working on, right? Did you have a question?
Yeah, I had a question. What do you mean by automation? Do you mean like automating processes for yourself or?
For the businesses. Right, most businesses think automation is the coolest thing ever. That's what they want to get into. So a lot of young guys will start automation agencies, and they'll be like, hey, I can automate this for you, I can automate this for you. Not realizing you're cutting people's jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Right, what happens when you do that? Yeah, you may get a check for that, but those people don't get a job anymore, right? And that's what's happening right now, is there's a lot of young guys who build automation agencies, and it is disruptive, So yeah, name, where you're from, and what are you working on, things like that. So we'll start with you.
My name is Kilian Lalou, and I'm coming from France. I mean, I was born in France, but I lived in Bali for the past 2 years. So I'm quite like, I live in Bangkok as well.
Did you enjoy it? Was it busy? Were the streets
Yeah,
packed?
yeah, I enjoyed a lot Bali. I enjoyed a lot as well Bangkok.
Yeah. How much is a room now in Bali? Is it $700, $800?
Yeah, $700. Yeah, and
Yeah.
if you want like a very nice one, you have like 1,500, something like that.
Yeah.
I have a marketing agency specialized on law firm
Okay.
on the French market.
Yep.
What's my favorite place? I think Bali. Bali is amazing.
That's nice.
Yeah, Bali.
The sunsets are pretty incredible.
Yeah, have you been there?
Yes.
Yeah, that's very great. Where in Canggu, Uluwatu?
Yes, I was actually in both. My friends took me there first, but I also stayed in Bangkok, but I was also in Seoul for a little bit.
Okay.
I started in Seoul, I went down there, and it was incredible, right? We did a lot more hiking, a lot more like hike and nature stuff, but it's pretty amazing like when you get out and see what people are doing, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I encourage this, right? Like this class may not have many people that show up. My other class that I teach is always full, right? That one is full just because people love AI. This is what I actually enjoy teaching the most, just because like more people work remote, right? And as more people work remote, you have to have more options in your goodie bag.
Yeah.
Because the economy is getting worse and more people are losing their jobs, and if you don't have side hustles, you're gonna struggle, right?
Yeah.
So I enjoy teaching this way more than the other one, just because that one right there, everybody wants to learn AI, right?
Yeah.
So if you show up next Monday, you're gonna learn some pretty cool stuff, but none of those people are gonna travel.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, it's very interesting because best traveling advice I can tell to anyone. Actually, I didn't receive a good advice. I just asked to ChatGPT. He's my best advisor. And then you have to confirm, obviously, blah blah blah.
Sure.
But my best advice was to find a gray situation where you can stay for 1 year and maybe more on a country, like for example Indonesia, Bali.
Yep.
Then you ask for the fiscality residency number.
Right. Yep.
And like that you have this number and you can open bank accounts all over the world with the Indonesian fiscality residency. But actually you're not very Indonesian resident. So it's a great thing, and until you not stay more than 6 months on one country, you can live like that with 0 taxes.
Yes.
I think it's the best advice.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, I think they're now expanding their program to include a 10-year visa program.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're doing quite a bit to expand that, whereas other countries like Singapore, who I talked to quite a bit, is it on? They will never have a digital nomad visa. Right? Singapore just absolutely will never have one because there are strict laws and things like that. And I go to all their events when they're in Austin, and I know most of the delegates that come through here, and they will never have one just because there are strict finance laws.
Yeah.
So.
And it's working because anyway they don't have the resource to do verification.
Yeah.
Because it's not a very rich country, so.
So great. All right. Next.
Hi, I'm Shreya, and I'm originally from India.
All right.
I've been in the States for 8 years now.
Okay. All right.
8 years now. So I am a full stack developer.
Okay.
And I got started working in tech because I did a project in Vietnam. So like I did my undergrad in biomedical engineering, which is completely different.
Yep.
And I didn't know what I wanted to work on once I completed. So I was traveling for a year, and I was in Vietnam, and I was working on a nonprofit, and they asked me to build a website for them. So I did, and then I realized that like there's something there. So that sort of like got me into this track.
Sure.
And yeah, like I enjoy traveling, and with everything that's going on right now, I was considering doing more of that, and you know, so I just, I'm here just
I
like,
would probably recommend that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
No matter what people tell you, everybody needs a website.
Yeah.
And there's always demand for that, right? So you're in a good space. You know, just like going to Bali, you're gonna find those little cafes where everybody's grinding it out and they're busy, and 9 a.m. is just packed, right? And all the little, scooters are lined up on the streets. People trying to make their millions, right?
Yeah.
So what's your best travel advice?
Get to know a local, or just like somebody who lives there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like as soon as you get there, like go find everything that's not touristy, right? Like if you see a rainforest cafe, you're in the wrong area. So great. All right.
Hi, I'm Jamar Alexander. I live down the street.
Okay, good.
I'm working on a robotic manufacturing system for myself, but that's just started.
Can you explain how you're working on a robotic manufacturing system by yourself? Do you have a warehouse? Do you have like moving parts and?
Like I said, it just started. So
Okay, got it.
it's just the software right now.
Okay, all right.
Favorite place I've visited, probably Beijing.
Okay.
But she stole my best advice.
Awesome.
Knowing a local
Yeah.
business helps.
The find is a good food.
Yes.
Who knows 1010 here? Jeez, are you even from Austin? So if you want good Mexican food, look for a place called 1010. If you find sushi, that you're in the wrong spot. Okay? And that will be my hint to you. Okay? If you can actually find it, I will be very impressed. So I'm glad we got to know what y'all are interested in. So this is some of the digital nomad news out there right now. So some of the digital nomad visa rankings are Portugal, Spain, Italy, Costa Rica, Colombia, and then obviously Bangkok. Just because it's actually Bangkok's ranked as #1 place to start a business. Like you can go in there in 1 hour, have your whole business set up, and start moving, right? And then get going. And a lot of people do that, you know. But this country was just named, and that one right there is Albania. So Albania was an interesting choice that they have right over there. And I think the next one is Moldova. Yes, that one right there, underrated, because most people are not thinking about these kind of countries. But again, Eastern Europe, they have a huge push to bring in more digital nomads, right? Because everybody wants to go to Spain, everybody wants to go to Portugal, everybody wants to go to Italy. But the eastern part tends to get ignored, right? So the cost of living is different there. You have way more opportunities. And I will tell you, any developer you get out of Eastern Europe is really good at what they do, right? So there's a huge push for that. And how digital nomad visas compare based on the data. So that one right there is a chart that if you just search that, you'll see like, unfortunately Spain keeps coming out on top, right? Like Spain, Portugal, those are sort of like the first movers for digital nomads, just because one, as long as you make the income threshold, which I think is $3,200 a month, you can get a digital nomad visa there and you can extend it, right? Most people will go Bali first, right? I have a lot of people who come to me, they're just like, I want to be a digital nomad, should I pack everything up and go to Bali? And I say, no, don't do that. Don't do that, right? Because they think like it's just super cheap there, right? But because so many people have moved there, the costs have gone up tremendously, right? So I always say like start off first and like go travel Texas. Most people I meet don't do that, right? They stay in the little Austin area. I say go take a day trip. Go to some place you've never been. Like Texas has over 100 different little towns. How many of y'all been to? Probably none, right? Go to a town for a weekend and see if you can start a business, get 3 clients and come back and see if you can just do that, right? Because if you can do that, then you can go a little further, right? Because some people will be like, I'm gonna go halfway across the world, start a business in a cafe, get my clients, and all of a sudden they find out they can't do it, right? So they have no return ticket, as they say, right? So, but yeah, it's only gonna get bigger as more people work remote. Right, as more people find opportunities, because unfortunately companies are not hiring. In fact, more companies are laying off people, right? So let's keep going. I always like to throw in a little digital nomad humor. That's what happens when you're a nomad, right? Just everything revolves around, I have to do this, I have to go here, I have to do this. Like there's another comic that I had where like, most people go to a cafe, they have their drink, they have a little dessert, and they have like a little like napkin on the side, right? That's their little table. A nomad has 2 tables, they have their laptop charger here, they have their little laptop set up here, they have their like storage sit here, they have their like their drink, their snacks, all that, and they're there all day. Right? But they only bought 2 items. And I'm sure you know, most cafes now have limits to where like you have to buy an item every 2 hours, otherwise you need to leave, right? So, all right, so I always include this just because most people don't realize like it is a growing thing, and these are a lot of stats that people are just not aware of. So by 2030, we're expected to have at least 1 billion digital nomads around the world, all contributing in some, fashion and sense. They do contribute quite heavily to economic countries, because they spend a lot of money. In fact, a lot of countries around the world have nomad programs that incentivize people to come live in their countries. The Nordic countries last year had a program where if you applied and you got in, they would pay you a monthly stipend. They would also provide you housing. They would give you a free co-working membership to go live in their places, right? Many countries are doing that right now. So because of what's going on here, many countries have now started to incentivize, hey, come live here where there are no problems, right? And they're paying people now to do that. So, and as of 2024, digital nomad stats show there's around 35 million digital nomads worldwide, but it is growing quite fast. And so I always kind of highlight like the disparities between like female and men who kind of join this lifestyle, right? There are a lot of women groups out there who do travel programs for digital nomads. There's a program here in Austin called She Hip Refresh, and it's for women 30 and above. And it's for women who sort of had a simple career, like after college to about 29, 30, and they're kind of tired of that world, right? So this lady started a program with a friend and said, hey, why don't we bring in these women who kind of want to do a restart and go show them how to travel, right? And that's what they do. So, anything here that kind of surprises you?
1 billion.
I mean, it's going to happen faster, I think.
Wow. I mean, it's mean that in 2050, it will be like a lot more.
So, yeah, I mean, like, so I try to teach in like the high school, early like college year levels, and most students have never heard digital nomad term, ever, right? And many of them are not even familiar that that's even a thing, right? Because their whole life they've been told, go to school, get an education, get a job, right? But nobody ever told them, hey, you can build your own business, travel the world, and do what you want, right? Nobody's teaching them that. So, let's get into the legal stuff, all right? I'm not a lawyer. I will never be a lawyer because I will never waste money on that stuff. But I did go to law school for free, so we won't talk about that. All right, visas and immigration. All right, so digital nomad visas, most top countries, like I said, Portugal, Spain, Costa Rica, Estonia, countries offering digital nomad visas. These are the ones that most people go to first. Why? Because it's so easy to get a nomad visa there. In fact, Costa Rica is the first popular destination because what happens when you go outside the country and you come back in to your visa? It renews. You can literally just go visit a friend, come back through Costa Rica, and your visa renews again. And many people do that, right? Other countries aren't as friendly, and that's why Costa Rica gets so many people, right? Typical nomad visas last anywhere between 6 and 24 months. And as long as you're contributing to their economy, they're happy to extend it, right? And if you have a great relationship with your immigration personnel, yeah, they'll work with you. So, but again, you will need to show proof of income, health insurance, remote employment are often required. And one of the things that I always kind of talk about with people is like, they're designed for remote workers, right? Not necessarily tied to a local employer. Some people will come in already working for a corporation, right? And they'll come in and they like it, and then what they'll do is either like cut ties with their employer and kind of continue on their own, right? They still have the visa, and they can continue, and they're allowed to make money, you know? So, again, nomads kind of want stability, so you kind of want to stay away from countries that have legal, you know, gray zones, because not every country has nomad visas, right? So it's either, you kind of pick one of the two, but never travel into a country with a tourist visa. You can land in jail or get fined or even kicked out, you know. And I've had people take my class and argue with me, and they're just like, how will they know? I'm like, hey, you want to try and test that law? Like, go right ahead, right? But again, yeah, Portugal, nomad visa, that's typically what they require. Estonia, Costa Rica, you know. I have a lot of friends who they'll start in Central America first, or even Panama, and then that's how they kind of begin their lifestyle. Many of them will try to shoot for residency right away, you know, so. Just like I said, risks of working on the wrong visa. Yeah, you can get into a lot of trouble. You know, you can get fined, deported, banned, denied re-entry. Immigration offices are increasingly aware of digital nomad practices, so they're always looking at social media feeds, right? So they're going to go through and see like, hey, you know, this is what's going on. You're here on a tourist visa, and yet you're talking about your business online. What's going on, right? So, and that's something at the very bottom, right? Like that right there. You get deported because like, hey, you know, why are you doing that? You know, and yet many Americans do that because they're just like, it's so much easier to get a tourist visa. So, and Japan, I'm sure y'all know, just became another country that offers nomad visas. I will let you know it's one of the hardest ones to get. So if you're planning to do that, you will have to go through a lot of hoops to get it. And even if you're taking a local job, yeah, you can violate some of those things real fast. So just keep those things in mind. Is any of this stuff new to you? I'm sure you've kind of covered some of this.
But I would say that I understand that you say it's forbidden, don't do that. But after maybe 5 years of traveling, I would say that everyone does it.
I know.
Everyone do it. Yeah.
I know.
Like for example, the example of Bali.
Yeah.
I think everyone has a tourist visa. Everyone working online, and obviously, it's very dangerous to say on Instagram I'm working online, but obviously everyone say that.
Yeah.
And yeah, there are stories like a guy, but we never know who is he, but there is one day a guy who get deported,
Mm-hmm.
and he cannot come for forever, like
Right,
he's
yeah.
banned forever
Yeah.
from Bali.
And it happens, you know. And some
It happens,
people,
it happens.
and some people want to test it, you know.
So when you say working online, you mean like local jobs or like?
No, like just that's the point. I mean, what is it if you have your laptop, like, and you're going to play video games? It's not working. But if you have your laptop and you work, like really work, it's forbidden. So you know the difference is a bit.
It's a gray area, right? Like if I run like 10 Shopify stores, right, and they all do different things, right? I'm working in a sense, right? But like I've set everything up before I even got there, right? So I'm still making money, and that's why a lot of people have a confusion as to just like, well, I've set this up before I got here. I'm still making money. I'm doing this,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. The same with the like if you talk with your team, because if you have a team and you're not doing the work, it means the production is not your responsibility. So you just manage people, and if you manage people, it means that you talk to people.
Yeah.
So if you talk to people, you're not very working in a way.
Yeah.
So
And that's why like a lot of people will try to slip through the cracks and they'll see how far they can get. And again, I always say like if it's not worth, you know, going to jail, you know, hey but again that's their life, right? I can only say so much, you know. So residency versus temporary stays, right? So that all comes down to your taxes now, right? The longer you stay, your tax issues start to change, right? And temporary digital nomad visas versus permanent residencies, right? They're not always the same thing. Many people think like that'll turn into a residency. Okay, what is that, magic beans or something? Like, it doesn't work like that, and you have to apply for a process, and if you don't get the process, then once your visa runs out, then yeah, you need to leave, right? Typically, the time frame is anywhere between 90 to 183 days or so. And I would say, like, if you are looking for a permanent residency, start off with simple countries, right? Like, start in South America first, where it's easier, and go through that process. It is cheaper compared to other countries, but from my friends who've done it, it still takes some time, right? So you will still have to go through an interview process. You'll still have to set up some bank accounts, which can take a long time, right? If you're familiar with the Panama Papers or the Paradise Papers, right? Like the laws have changed in the legal world, so you will have to fill out a lot more paperwork than what used to be, right? Before the Panama Papers came out, you could literally go to Panama, sign one paper, and have all these accounts open, right? And now it's changed, you know. So
I don't know what that is.
the Panama Papers.
No.
Oh my gosh, let me tell you.
Sorry.
So the Panama Papers basically exposed the dangerous side to the wealthy, if you will, right? And they were basically, this is how you launder money. And everything sort of went through Panama, right? So what happened was they discovered that most of these law firms that were set up were going in and setting up shell company after shell company after shell company. But if you look at the structure of all these shell companies, it kept going down to like 5 people. And those 5 people were like presidents and board of directors and all these things for thousands and thousands and thousands of companies. And they were just like, who's signing all these documents and doing all this stuff? Well, it just happened to be immigrants who didn't know what they were signing. So they were paying these women to come in and sign these documents for rich people who were around the world that they had never met, never talked to, had nothing to do with this stuff. And they were creating a shell company under a shell company under a shell company and signing off on this stuff, right? And once that word broke of who was doing this, let me tell you, people's lives were destroyed. Many marriages were destroyed as well, and wealthy people were furious. Like they found out that they were laundering money. Go figure, right? Problem with that was many of their systems that they set up made it so hard to figure out where the money was going that it still was difficult to kind of figure out where is the money, right? You also found out in Panama Papers and the Paradise Papers that over in Switzerland, there's a massive warehouse over there that just houses all this art, cars, jewelry, diamonds. And the reason why it's there is because it's in a legal gray zone, which means that it's not technically owned by anybody. And yet it's still owned by certain people because every item is inside a shell company, inside a shell company, inside a shell company. But it's all growing in massive wealth, right? So even if you were to go in there, you can't technically do anything. Not even the police can go in that warehouse, right? So it's a very interesting world when you study offshore financing. So if you want to learn more, I'm sure none of you have heard of this movie, so go home and please watch it. It's called The Laundromat, and it takes the Panama Papers and it turned it into a movie. And when you do watch it, you'll be very surprised to see who is actually in that movie. But that tells you how money is laundered around the world. So it's very good.
What's the movie?
The Laundromat.
The Laundromat.
Have you heard of it?
No.
I didn't think so. But I know how to launder money. Don't do it. But it's very interesting how it's done, right? So if you want to learn how to clean money, watch the movie. So again, you know, always research what country you're going to and what requirements they have, right? Just do your homework. Like, it's that simple. And now that we have AI to do it for us, like, hey, I'm going to go to Estonia, give me a checklist of every document I need to work on, tell me what time frame I need to plan out my visa application and interview. And you'll find that some visa applications are easier than others. There are some countries that do require you to plan out 6 months in advance for your interview, right? I remember one guy, Drew Binsky, he's one of my idols in traveling. He says some of the hardest visas he's ever had to do was they will randomly call you and be like, hey, your interview's tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And he's halfway around the world. And he knows if he doesn't make that interview slot, he's not going to get it for another 2 years. Right? You know, it's just how they kind of do it there. So, but always just do your homework, sit down and figure out like, the best thing you can do is just plan out a route around the world. That's the cheapest thing, you know? Once you do that, being a digital nomad is very affordable. Many people think nomad lifestyle is this jet setter, like, I'm on a plane every day and I'm in a new city and I'm going to clubs and I'm doing this and having, that's not a digital nomad, right? They're very much trying to keep their costs low, right? So they want to travel, you know, slow, but they want to make friends, they want to build a network, you know? So just a checklist, you know, make sure you research your destination, plan things ahead, and check if digital nomad does include tax residency as part of it, right? It depends on the country. If you are a US citizen, yes, regardless of where you go, you will have tax obligations. If you're not a US citizen, do your homework, right? Obviously, if you're going to Dubai, there are no taxes there. What's the caveat to that? There's a lot of fees for everything in Dubai, right? So you may think, I'm not paying taxes, but there's fees for so many little things all over it. It's the same thing. So, and I would always say just get a little folder that has all your documents in it, if you still deal with physical stuff. If you're a person who deals with digital, put it on a thumb drive or something and just have it as a backup, right? So, and never work on a tourist visa. Unless you have in writing, in video, it's okay, which never happens. Alrighty, taxes and compliance. I know. We'll try to make this fun. Alright, so tax residency issues. There are 3 options, and we'll get to those, which is the 183-day rule, center of life rule, and permanent ties rules. And I will go into details, so don't worry about those things. But you may owe taxes even if you live abroad. Hey, come on. We're just covering taxes right now, so you missed everything else that was important. I'm just
Okay.
I'm
a little early anyway.
It's okay. It's alright. Alright. So our discussion points right here is most countries will consider you a tax resident if you're physically there for more than 183 days, right? So just consider that as a point, right? I will also let you know that if I think it's 360 days, if you're outside the US, your tax obligations drop tremendously, right? And so that's something that to keep in mind, because I have a lot of friends who do travel quite a bit and they try to stay out of the US at least 360 days out of the year, which is crazy because if you do invest in stocks, your stock requirements are that you stay in the US within 6-month period, right? So it makes it really difficult to follow these rules. And then also, center of vital interests is where's your home, family, bank accounts, things like that, right? So if you go to different countries and you start opening all these accounts, hence why you need a CPA, right? Hence why you need somebody to start managing this for you, because it can get a little dicey, right? Because you may go to a country that does require you to open bank accounts before you get there. If you've ever done this before, where some countries do require you to have their local health insurance before you even step in the country. And that's why when we go further into insurance, there are companies out there like Sojourn, Safety Wing, and Nomad, Inseed, I think it is. They provide health insurance and emergency insurance and travel insurance and all these things as a nomad, right? So it doesn't matter where you're at, they cover you for everything, right? So, and a digital nomad who stays 6 months in Portugal may become a Portuguese tax resident and owe taxes there in addition to the US. So just keep these things in mind because it can get a little dicey after a while. So key terms right here, I just want to go into more detail. This is the most widely used rule that most countries deal with, and that is if you do stay more than 183 days in a country, you're usually considered a tax resident there, and you may have to pay income tax plus your billable income as well. So a lot of people try to keep that in mind. There are apps now that will even alert you like, hey, you're getting close to 90 days, 180 days, things like this. What do you want to do, right? So as long as you're keeping track of your expenses and your income, and you're okay with that, then yes. Yeah. Any questions about this? This is the most standard one out there. All right, so center of life. Basically, where is your center of life at? Where do you spend the most time in your world? And that's kind of how you'll start to see how you're taxed. Okay, if you spend less than 183 days in a country, they may still claim you as a tax resident if it sees you as a center of life, which means you're passing through so much that you're not necessarily there more than 183 days, but you're always there, right? So that sort of becomes your center of life. And so they start to look at your family and partner lives. They start to look at your main home location. Even if it's remote, you may have a house in Miami, New York, they will start to question like, you're always here, and what's going on, and what's happening, you know, so, yeah. For some, is this new to you? No? Everybody's been through the tax laws of digital nomad?
No, but it's always great because you can have like apartment in one country. It doesn't mean that you have your.
What's that? You're talking about the wealthy again? What's that? I can't hear you. Yes. That's how the wealthy travel, right? Like they don't look at the world as borders. They look at it as just like, I need to go to France and have lunch with my friend, and then I'm supposed to have dinner in Italy, and the kids want to go to Dubai for some birthday party, and we got to go to Perth after that for a wedding, right? Because it's just a typical week. But yes, that is how they live their worlds, and their accountants probably hate them for it because it just causes all kinds of problems, you know? So permanent ties, where do you kind of see yourself always kind of like stuck to? So this is another rule that they kind of follow and look at, right? So owning or keeping a house for long-term lease, right? So if I'm going around the world and I'm buying all these houses, and I'm sort of living in these houses, it becomes an issue, right? So now the tax rules change even more because they're going to look at that and be like, hey, where do you live? You know, you're kind of always here and you're kind of not, and then people are staying here, but you're making money off of it, and what's going on, right? I would hate to be somebody's CPA or tax accountant for families like that, but there are people that do that, right? So there are firms that cater to this kind of stuff. But being enrolled in like local healthcare voting systems, if you're going around, you're voting in other elections around the world, what are you doing? You know, like you're not necessarily a citizen, but yet you're voting, right? And you have a lot of local banks, so that means you have a lot of investments everywhere, and it can get kind of a thorny issue. Any questions, comments, concerns, complaints? Don't worry, next month will be fun. So.
Actually on the jet, sorry. We're talking for now. I'll see you next time.
Alright, thanks. So why this matters, right? You may be a tax resident in more than one country, right? And that does happen because you may be there and you think like, no, I wasn't there long enough, and you're gonna get a phone call, right? Or you're gonna get some documents sent to you and be like, hey, we need to have a talk, right? And you can't just avoid tax by moving around, and many people try that. And it does come to bite them in the ass. Because remember, it's not like you're just sneaking into a country and be like, oh, nobody knows I'm here. Because they kind of keep track of that. So it is important to keep records for everything, right? So all your entry dates, all your exit dates, everything, and keep your tickets, right? Any lease agreements you have, tax filings, financial documentations. And guess what? There's apps for that now. Like the world of digital nomad has expanded so much that there are now apps for a lot of this stuff. So. All right, let's keep going. I know we'll try to get through this a little faster. Double taxation and how to avoid it, right? So foreign tax credits and tax treaties, they rely on tax treaties based off of what countries you're moving between. So US has tax treaties between other countries, and that's where your CPA comes in, right? That's where your team of accountants will kind of follow this. So if you follow the foreign tax exclusion credit, then you can exclude up to $120,000 of foreign earned income. There's a catch to that, right? And you have to meet certain requirements. Physical presence test, which means that did you meet the requirements of how many days you're supposed to be here versus not, right? So if you're passing through and you're kind of jumping around, you're going to cause some problems, right? The FTC form 1116 gives a dollar for dollar credit for foreign taxes paid. So if you pay that much, then you can sort of get a credit on your US taxes for that, right? And some countries, like I said, have tax treaties to prevent double taxation, right? Because you don't want that to happen. There's not a treaty for every country though, right? So if you're traveling a lot and you've got a lot of things to do, yes, you better have a team to handle this. Otherwise, you'll be up all night April 14th, maybe. So, again, we have AI now, right? And we have AI tools now that do all this stuff for you and can break everything down. There are AI tools that kind of go in and just be like, here, upload all your documentation. I will help fill everything out, and I will send that to a CPA to kind of do the final review. When I kind of show this in my other classes for AI usage, it's pretty cool like how far it'll go. But just remember, it's not a CPA, it's not an accountant, and it doesn't know all the rules around the world, and it can get confused, right? So if you do submit something and you think like, AI did it, it must be correct, you can get into a lot of trouble. So. Common pitfalls they face, not filing US taxes while abroad. Let me tell you how many times I've had people in my class say, yep, I forgot April 14th because I was in Spain half the year and not keeping track of that stuff, and it happens. And then they get the letters in the mail, and they are in so much trouble. It's not fun. And then failing to track your days for a physical presence test, right? Use the Digital Nomad app and use it to where like you're keeping track of all your visas, all your entry dates, all your stuff. Otherwise, you will have all kinds of legal problems coming back into the US. And now that we have sort of this immigration crackdown, they're looking for every reason to stop you at the border now, right? And even if you are a US citizen, and even if you make 10K freelancing in Bali, you're still required to file a tax return in the US if you're a US citizen. If you're not a US citizen, hey, go enjoy life, so. But it does have certain requirements, and these are all things that, again, it takes a lifestyle to sort of get to this level, right? Most people don't always deal with this stuff because being a nomad, like, you're just trying to get to one country. Just get to one country, and then you're like, this shit is hard. And they're like, I gotta make a company, I gotta make money, I'm going back home. This is hard, I need a job. And I can't tell you how many times I've met people where that happens, right? I meet people here in Austin who move here and they're just like, I'm gonna make it big. And I'm like, this is Austin. This place is expensive to live in. What are you doing? Like, go back home, And I meet people all the time who move here like, but Austin's so cool. I was like, yeah, if you can afford it, you know, and then they try to build a company and they're like, no, I have to go back home. It's like the same thing, right? Because you're trying to build a company somewhere else and you're trying to survive. If you can do that here and make 6 figures, you might be able to survive in Austin, right? What's the median housing price for Austin now? Anybody know? Anybody want to take a guess?
For a home?
For a home in Austin, what's the median?
I think it's 350.
Do you live in Austin? Are you from here?
In Pflugerville, yeah.
Okay, Pfluger? Okay, it's 680. 680. So even if you make 350 in Austin, you still cannot afford a home. Now, if you live in East Austin, you can find a home for $200,000. That's East Austin. Probably gonna need some fumigation and some checkups and inspections every 6 months, but the median price for a home in Austin is $680 now. Right? That's crazy. Cost for everything in Austin's gone up. In fact, my last class, the city of Austin for utilities just announced their 3rd rate hike for utilities in 1 year. So again, trying to get to something like this is you're just trying to get to another country that has lower cost of living, which a lot of people I meet are trying to do, right? Because if I can go to another place and my cost of living is $10,000 a year for total expenses, why wouldn't you take that, right? I have a friend, I don't know if y'all know Josh, the free water guy. He moved to Italy. He lived here for a long time, right? But he moved to Italy. He showed me his house. He showed me all the land he owns. His total yearly expense is $10,000. That's it, right? And I said, yeah, you can't even do that in Austin. You just can't do that, you know? And that's why he left Austin, you know?
After, I mean, yeah, that's the most common mindset, but you can as well think like as an opposite mindset, like you go on place where it's very expensive, where you can meet very rich people in order to scale your company, in order to scale your mindset, in order to, it's like when you're going to New York, you see all that buildings and you're like, fuck, I'm not rich enough. So I want to make more money. And usually it works very well because when you're digital nomad, most of the limits of your business is your mindset.
Yep.
So
how do you become a millionaire in Austin?
I mean, meeting people, it's already better than staying in Bali.
Okay, but what's the demographic for Austin?
The demographic?
Yeah, what's the demographic for Austin? Can anybody know? What's the highest concentration of Austin here? What happens every August? 250,000 young people move to Austin to go to college.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a young person's town. Do you know where all the old people live? They live on the north side, right? Because they have their families, they have their life, they have their 3 p.m., they pick up the kids, they start dinner, homework routine. You come here, this is all young people. Like this is all young people, right? And they're all coming here for school, college. So you go to 6th Street late at night, you're gonna see nothing but people under 24 years old, right? You're not gonna go to North Austin and be like, man, where are the clubs? That's why there's no clubs on the north side, right? It's a young person's town. And I have to remind people of that because they come here and they're just like, man, I'm gonna start a company. Great, cool, get in line, right? Because every other person wants to do that, right? And if every person's trying to build a company, everybody is competing for the same people, right? So now we take New York. You see all these cool buildings. Great, how do I get inside them? Any idea? And that's why you take my networking class, right? Because I show you how to get into those buildings. So one of the things that I do is I pay attention to every event that goes on, right? Like I have lists from all around the world of showing like every event that goes on, right? So I have lists that come in from Seattle, Chicago, New York, Miami, LA, London. I have stuff in Paris, and I know where all the events are going on, right? So every time somebody comes to me like, hey, I'm going to New York, what should I do? I can pull up my list and show you like, hey, next Monday, go to this event. Go ask for Mark, he can show you around, right? And here's the crazy part. I don't go grocery shopping anymore. Why? Because there's so many events to go to with free food. You think it's funny, but somebody asked me the other day, they're just like, how much would you say you saved in money not buying groceries anymore? I said, are you talking about like the good food at events, like the lobster, the sushi, and all this stuff? I said, probably $35,000 last year, I saved. That I didn't spend money on going to the grocery store, right? So what happens in your life when you're not getting off of work and you're not going to H-E-B to get dinner? What happens? You're networking, right? So your network keeps growing. So every day you're meeting new people, you're expanding your connections, and you're finding new opportunities, right? Because I'm not sitting at H-E-B waiting in line to spend $200 on the same items I spent last year that were half the price. I want sushi, guess what? I can go to New York and I can find all the sushi events. Do I know what they are? They're probably in Manhattan, some Wall Street event, but guess what? I get to have sushi. So, the reason why I mention this is because when you're a nomad, you're trying to keep your costs low, right? Who here knows how rich people travel? Does anybody keep track of their calendar? No? We've never been to the Kentucky Derby? We've never been to the Monaco Grand Prix? Why would I keep track of that? It's exactly what you just said. If I hang out with wealthy people, what happens to me? My wealth goes up, right? Because I'm not looking for work anymore, because wealthy people make other wealthy people wealthy, right? So if you find opportunities, you as a developer will meet somebody and be like, hey, I'm trying to work on this. Hey, let me develop it for you. Cool, how much do you need? Here's a story I tell people that still blows people's minds today. 10 years ago, I would meet people here. They were software developers, and this is a time when making apps was actually hard, right? And they would fly to San Francisco, and they would look for private events, and they would get dressed up, and they would go to these events and meet wealthy people, and what would they do in those rooms? They're not selling.
Will sell themselves.
They're not selling. What are they doing? No. Don't think like that. They're waiting for somebody to say, I have an idea that I want to turn into an app. And they turn around and say, I can build that for you in 6 months. And that's all it takes to tell a rich person their idea can actually happen, right? So when you tell a rich person, hey, I can build that for you in 6 months, what do you think they're going to do? What are they going to ask you? How much? And that person will always turn around and be like, if you can put this number on a check, I can have an MVP in 6 months. And they would come back to Austin with 10 contracts like that, set up, all 6 figures, and they just work on their own projects. They're not selling, they're listening for problems, right? And that's what entrepreneurs are not very good at doing. Like, they're trying to solve a problem instead of listening for problems. And many times I meet people who build for a problem that doesn't exist, right? They're just like, I built this AI company and it does this. Great. Who asked for this? Who asked for this, right? Oh, but I saw it in a newspaper that says that. So just as a checklist, as we're wrapping up taxes right here, just make sure that, one, consult a tax advisor every time, right? Like, doesn't matter your situation, always find somebody that deals with international taxes. And kind of go through and just keep track of your 3 rules, right? Either 183 days, center of life, or permanent ties. And remember, remote workers hit back with taxes after assuming no obligations abroad. You don't want to fall into that mess, right? So just like the people who I mentioned before who go looking for jobs, right? They're in the US, they go and they pick up all these contracts. Some of the work they can report, some of them they don't have to report, right? Because sometimes you'll meet somebody who's just like, here, let me just pay you in cash. Cool, I got a big mattress. Yeah. Alright, business registration. We're gonna kind of go through this kind of quickly just because most people here should already know this stuff, right? But as a nomad, most people will fall under LLCs, right? If you get big enough to where you're hiring more people and you have a remote team, you're gonna switch to an S corp, right? And so most of the time, if you're running a Shopify store or you're doing social media, yeah, you're probably gonna do an LLC. right? If you're all around the world and you have big teams, you're gonna switch to an S corp. And the only reason for that is because you get more tax, preferential treatment, right? And that's what you want, and that's why people do it.
I have to go.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Same thing.
All right, later. So that's where it kind of comes into where you're gonna move between the two. And it's okay to have several different ones. I know many entrepreneurs who have many LLCs, right? And they all do different things, right?
Are LLCs only for American citizens?
Yes, you can come in and build one as well. But again, even if you're outside the US or you're not a US citizen, you can launch based off of like a corporation status if you have multiple businesses under you, right? So if you're from France, they sort of have a similar structure over there as well, you know, so. Again, most people will register in Wyoming or Delaware just because it's most popular in the US and it's the easiest to set up, right? If you've ever done a Delaware corporation or an LLC, like LegalZoom, you can fill out one piece of paper, pay $100, and then it's done in like 1 hour, right? So many lawyers will tell you don't do that. Like sit down with me and pay the $1,000 and get it all done. It's your choice, right? You know, so if you're just running a Shopify store, it may just be a LegalZoom thing, you know. Business registration, discussing points, like if you are going to be doing this, your invoicing tools, getting paid, and business banking, these are all different forms and options you can use on an international level, right? So invoicing tools, Bonsai, and .co, FreshBooks or QuickBooks. And again, having a good international accountant will help you kind of get through all that stuff. So US online business banks, obviously Mercury, Relay, Blue Line, they all kind of cater to international banking, you know, so you can kind of deal with them for your needs and sit down with them, but again, they're all online, you know, so like Allied Bank, when that first came around, so many people didn't think that was gonna make it, right? Because you're thinking like, if they're only online, how do I deposit money and where do I go and how do I talk to anybody, right? And now how many people use Allied Bank, right? So. Again, just your checklist, figure out what structure you want to use AI, right? I'd sit down and be like, hey, I'm gonna start this company, what do you think is a good structure to start with? If you're not sure, just start with an LLC, right? Like just put, like I will tell you from like a real estate investing standpoint, if you buy a house, put it into an LLC. And if you buy another house, what should you do? Put that into an LLC, right? And every home you have as an investor, you put it into an LLC, right? Why do you do that? Well, because if anything happens inside that home, you're not necessarily responsible for it, your company is, right? And then as you build all your LLCs, what happens above that? Your S corp, right? So your S corp acts as your parent company above the LLCs, right? So it can manage those. Contracts and agreements, and this is the part that even if you're not a nomad, it's still good to know, right? How to deal with contracts. So, clauses, jurisdiction, payment terms, IP, dispute resolutions. This is the stuff where like you're gonna deal with clients on an international level. Your contracts better be solid, right? Because if I'm in Australia and my client that I'm working with is in France, whew, you better figure out how you're gonna deal with those disputes. Because the laws are very different across the ocean. I had one person one time get mad at me because I was teaching a certain program, right? And that program was just a website that's sort of like a social media site. And they're just like, why are you teaching this? Like, this just promotes like copyright infringement. And he was just like telling me that he was suing all these people in Australia that had broken or stolen his copyright. And I said, so how do you plan to dispute that? They're in Australia. He's like, well, I'm suing them right now. I'm like, so you're expecting them to show up in a court that has nothing to do with their jurisdiction, and you're gonna win your case. He's like, well, that's what the lawyers are. I said, yeah, you have no idea what you're doing. He never once saw those people, nothing ever happened to those cases, and he never got an ounce of money from that, right? So always remember, like, when you are dealing with international stuff, to make sure your contracts are pretty solid, and who is gonna deal with your dispute resolutions, so.
So is that something that you do where they like work contracts between like different companies? Like if you're traveling to one country, do people generally work in that country or any
anywhere, right? So have you heard of Nomad Cruise?
No.
So Nomad Cruise is this cruise line, that basically, it's not a cruise ship in a sense, right? You're not there to party. Everyone there is a digital nomad, right? So your room is sort of your apartment for about 3 months, right? And that cruise goes to different ports around the world. Any idea why they do that? What are you trying to do as a nomad? You're trying to grow your business. You want more clients, right? So the cruise goes to different ports around the world, so you can go into those regions of the world and get new clients and learn the culture and people and see what's going on, right? So they will dock for about 4 to 6 weeks. That gives you enough time to go in, meet people, find new clients, do more business, and then they go to another port and you do it all over again, right? All of a sudden, when you're done with that cruise trip, guess what happens? Your network is huge. You've met so many people, and the cool part about it is you probably meet somebody on the ship who grew up in that region, who can show you around, introduce you to people. That's why people do that cruise ship, right? So when they go back on their ship, they're working, they're getting new clients, they're doing business, all those things, right? And so they're waiting for the next port to go to so they can get off and start exploring. So again, having something like this is good because then you know when you deal with different people in different regions, you have sort of an international agreement contract. So again, I would say intellectual property is probably not something most people are going to deal with. Unless you're building something that's really proprietary, most people I deal with are Shopify stores, YouTube, social media, t-shirt stores, things like that. There's not really a lot of IP. But if you are going to be doing anything with IP, you need a lawyer who's going to write some very extensive contracts. So, just keep in mind that if you are dealing with companies or countries that deal with sort of like IP infringement histories, be very careful with anything like that, right? So.
Do you know the countries? I don't know of countries that have IP infringement other than China, but.
I mean, they do that all the time.
Yeah.
Like China, and then a lot is South America, right? So anything like Argentina, Colombia, Ecuador, you're going to deal with a lot of like problems over there, just because like it's a little sketchy.
Okay.
So if you're going to deal with anything like, you're going to have to figure out some way to protect yourself. Even corporations deal with this problem, so I don't really have a solution except talk to AI and figure out like, how do I go about protecting this? Unless you can get on video, like there's a full agreement that there's no stealing, right? Good luck doing that because they probably won't show their faces on video. You know, so it can get a little sketchy sometimes, and this is why like some corporations really have like hundreds of lawyers who deal with this problem.
Yeah, it sounds kind of scary, like you never meet the people you're working with.
Right, and that's why like a lot of people, like even in the US, like you might have contract agreements here, right? And some people will just be like, yeah, I'm not gonna abide by that contract anymore. And the problem with that is what? Well, if you want to sue them, that's gonna cost money, right? And if you can't afford the lawyer, then you're gonna be out of money, right? Even if you have the contract, it doesn't mean anything. So again, use templates. Right? We have so many websites and AI tools now that can create contract templates for you. And what I always tell people now is just get it on video. Like literally just get everything on video, because if you have a video testimonial with them signing the contract, that's another form of protection showing that yes, they did sign this, yes, they did agree to do this, and that can also be submitted as evidence. Because it's one thing to say, no, that's not my signature, and it's another thing to say, no, that's you in the video signing that document, showcasing this. Any questions? My favorite is that one right there, Docracy, where you have crowdsourced legal documents, right? So I would definitely say take a look at some of those and what people have kind of put together, and then go with AI and sit down and go, hey, I'm dealing with this client, this is what we're going to work on. can you help put together a customized version, right? Yeah. And again, just a checklist for what you're doing. Make sure governing law works in your favor or is neutral, right? I've had people go in and rewrite contracts and say like, no, I want to make sure that if this happens that I have, the power to do this, right? Third, payment terms. Always make sure you know the method, the due date, and what currency is going to be filed in, right? And IP rights. Again, make sure you figure out who's going to have full control after transfer. And then project scope and timeline. This is where people mess up, and that is they don't define the project and they don't define the timeline, right? So they're just like, hey, full stack developer, I'm going to build your website, and when you say you like it, project is done. That's so vague that they can say like, hey, we will pay you when we approve the website. That could be 2 years from now, right? And you have to have those terms in the contract. So, and a termination clause that basically protects both parties. Hey, I didn't like the work, we're going to terminate the contract. Here's why. So, top 3 must-have remote work contracts for digital nomads. Have a work agreement. Just literally sit down and go home and figure out 5 different contracts to have on hand, right? Like if you know what you're doing, sit down and be like, hey, what work contracts should I create? Full stack developer, there are so many contracts for full stack developers out there that you can really find 5 that you like and just customize them, right? Some of them are about like 5-10 pages each, and that's a good thing, right? And always make sure it covers scope of work, payment terms, what jurisdictions, if there's any, that they're going to be handled in, how do you handle disputes, and termination clause. So, next one, non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, right? Like probably you might have an NDA. You, on the other hand, I'm not sure, right? You're just providing a service of building websites. If they have proprietary information they're putting on the website, which I don't know why you would do that, you might require an NDA, right? But yes, so NDAs are just sort of standard to have in case you're dealing with something, private. And your last one is your IP clause, which means that if you don't have IP, the only thing you really need to worry about is your first 2, and that's it, right? So your work agreement, contract, and your non-disclosure. So again, at the very bottom, as you'll notice, as a web developer working from Bali, they didn't have an IP agreement. The client claimed full ownership of her reusable code modules and demanded she stop using them for other clients, right? This stuff happens, right? And it's unfortunate. So I would say in your case, look into this, see if it matters for what you do. Alright, so cautionary tale, this is something that I kind of went across. They're an Italian video editor, signed a client contract governed by the UAE, right? So that's out there in Dubai. And then when the client refused to pay, Marco realized pursuing legal action would require hiring a lawyer in Dubai. It's expensive and complex, and he ended up having to walk away, right? So the contract wasn't sizable enough to handle anything. Always check your jurisdiction, right? So if you know that you work in UK and you're going to say any disputes will resolve in the UK and not Dubai, they need to agree to that. Otherwise, don't pursue the work. Financial tools. All right, so we'll kind of go through this a little quick. But invoicing and payments, in case you haven't had any, like Wise, Payoneer, these are all good for digital nomads. So they have low costs. And they're mostly accepted around the world. In fact, if you use Fiverr, Airbnb, Upworks, they kind of all integrate with those platforms. So, yeah. Have any of y'all used Upworks, Fiverr, like Guru, Freelancer?
I use Fiverr.
Okay. Do you like it? Is it fun? Is it hard? Is it like, who are these people?
It's super simple.
Okay. Have you ever posted before? Or do you only hire?
I only hire.
I've never used anything. I've seen them. I've been on them. Just have to stuff.
So do you want to make $1 million real quick? So
I've considered it.
there's a book, and this is for my other class, and it's called The $1 Million One-Person Business, right? And that's where I built that other class from. And so in that book, there were 2 guys who wanted to basically make a lot of money. So they went on to Upworks, and they started an agency profile, right? and they would go and they would pick up all these jobs that got posted on Upwork for web development and app development. And what do you think they did? Because remember, they didn't know how to do any of that stuff. What did they do? How? There you go. They would pick up the jobs, and then they would go and hire the people on Upwork, and then they would connect the jobs to the people, and then they would do the work. So within 8 months, they were at $1 million revenue. And they kept doing that over and over and over, right? Because they would just pick up the job, pick up the job, pick up the job, and then they would just go find the people, do the job, and then they get the money. And they just did that so many times that they were able to hit $1 million revenue within 8 months.
That doesn't count as fraud?
No, that counts as being smart. So what's stopping you from making $1 million? So you gotta finish Love Island, is that?
It's a lot of planning and to get like a
So you need an assistant is what you're saying. Okay. So the next one right there is obviously we know Stripe and then Deal. Deal is good for contractors working on international startups or remote first companies. So again, I kind of like highlight these four just because some people are very familiar with Stripe, but not so much with Deal or Payoneer or Wise. But they do all have really good low costs, and that's kind of why I mentioned them, right? So you're going to deal with a lot of different people, and this is why most of the time people prefer to use Fiverr, they prefer to use Upwork because the payment system is transferred automatically in those platforms. You know? Don't ever hire off of Facebook. My God, if you're looking for scams in your life, that's where to go, right? If you need problems, go to Facebook. Otherwise, stay on these platforms because I had somebody try and get me off one. They're just like, hey, can you pay me through PayPal, right? You do that, my God, you're going to open up a can of worms. Their cousin's going to start calling you. Their family members are going to call you like, hey, he needs work too. Do you have anything for him? And oh, it's a mess, right? So invoicing, payments. So again, choose your local currency receiving accounts. So again, you can pick those apps. And in the apps, you can go in and pick the receiving country and then just stick to that, right? So if you know you're going to be based out of Europe for a while, select Europe as your receiving account and keep it that way, right? Most people prefer to keep the US dollar, but again, if you're in Europe, you kind of want to make it easy to do transfers, you know, so. And invoice always in the stronger currency, batch conversions, and then FX alerts, just in case you know, like, hey, if I convert to this currency, it's going to cost me more, so just keep those things in mind. And your checklist, right? Just choose a payment tool with multiple currency support. That's why Wise or what is it, WeChat is what a lot of people use over in Asia, you know. So, and specify your preferred currency, and let people know also when you're making your contracts what currency you prefer, and also your preferred method, right? If you're going to prefer PayPal, Wise, anything like that, it needs to be in the contract. So, and agree on who pays transfer fees. Is it you or the client or someone else? Budgeting and money management. So this stuff we've kind of heard our whole life, but again, when you're traveling, get QuickBooks, use Excel, anything you can to keep track of your expenses, because when those taxes come due, you do not want to be in a bad situation, right? So just create a budget to keep track of these things, rent, savings, software, because you can write off quite a bit of that stuff, right? So again, I always tell people, like, if you do social media, what can you write off when you're a social media content creator?
like expenses for your setup and
Okay. What can you write off? If I'm traveling to Bali and I'm making my video of me getting on the plane and I'm showcasing like my seat and my food, and I get to Bali and I showcase my room and all this stuff, what am I writing off?
oh, the whole thing.
I just showed you how to save a whole bunch of money. And no matter how many times I tell people to be social media influencers, what do they tell me? No, I need to go make money. Sorry, I don't have time. Crazy, right? Zeno, it's another form of like QuickBooks for small taxes and tax compliance. And budgeting in multiple currencies. So again, we have AI tools now, right? Like, so just keep everything in like your home currency, and then just have AI kind of convert it for you, right? So you can kind of do that now, which is nice because it was hell before that. And here's some examples: tech software, co-working, and these are all things you can write off, right? As a nomad, you can write off pretty much everything, right? Because as long as it's on video and as long as it's being posted, it's all a job-related expense, right? And this is why many people will set up a podcast in their homes, because guess what happens to their home? It's a write-off now, right? Many people will do a podcast in their car. What happens when you do that? Your car is a write-off, right? And then insurance protection, so health insurance, safety ring I mentioned before, right? Like they're really popular with digital nomads. The cool thing I like about them is that when you land in a country, you can call them up and say, hey, I'm here, and they will send you a map of your city and show you where all your hospitals are that you can go to, where all the pharmacies are that you can get prescriptions from, and all the prices for everything, right? And they will have an emergency number, and they will just basically email you this whole checklist. I would love it if American health companies did that, and they never will. Another one is insured nomads, right? So they cover all kinds of things, plus tech gear, right? So remember, your three forms of insurance are your health insurance, your local health insurance, your travel insurance, right? There is another one, and it's called emergency travel insurance, which is different. So you might need a fourth one depending on your needs, right? So, and your emergency travel insurance covers things like your flight got canceled and needs to get rescheduled, or if some emergency landing took place and you're stranded in another city or country, and they will help pay for all that kind of stuff, right? In case you did not know this, because we live in such a great place, they have taken away consumer protection laws for airlines. Do you know what that means?
So if you're flying, oh wait, I think I saw something about that, like you don't get reimbursed for like cancelled flights and all that.
That's all been taken away now. Because this is such a great place, right? So now if anything happens to you on a flight, you're screwed.
Right, like lost baggage, all of it?
Everything. Now you want to go to Bali, right? So, and that's why insurance like this kind of makes up for that now. Yeah. Gear insurance, this is becoming a bigger and bigger thing, right? Especially if you're a social media influencer. Yes, you're definitely going to want something like this because your cameras are how you make money, your storage devices are how you make money, all of it, right? So this has just become sort of like an accidental loss. Do y'all remember that huge emergency situation that happened over in Machu Picchu, where some weather incident happened, right? And all these tourists got stranded way up there on the mountain. Well, they couldn't bring them back and save them. But the people who had this type of insurance, emergency travel insurance, they were able to call them and had another company come out and rescue those people and take them back home. Everyone else had to stay. Kind of important to have it, you know.
It seems kind of rude, like while you're right there.
You know what you should do? Use that same excuse when that rich person's getting onto their jet plane and be like, it's kind of rude that I'm not on there. You know, just, I'm right here.
Yeah.
So again, liability, professional indemnity insurance, things like that for nomads. Who needs this? Designers, developers, consultants, coaches, trainers. Again, this happens, and yes, this is a real insurance thing, is like if you are screwed or something happens between you and a client, that insurance will protect you, right? And this will help ensure that you're still covered for your work expenses and your costs, and if any client disputes take place, right? So if there's a breach of contract, what happens? And these type of companies will come in and basically reimburse you, you know, so. It's crazy the amount of insurance we kind of need, but I would still say it's way cheaper to have this than what American companies charge for health insurance, right? In case you didn't get the memo or the email, you'll be happy to know that your health insurance will be going up 20% next year, give or take. All right, let's do a checklist, right? Insurance and protection. So purchase global health insurance, check your regions, right? Because your regions might also have you require their health insurance before that one, right? So you don't want to sort of like have double coverage. Make sure to add your dental or your mental health or any emergency evacuations if needed. If you're going to Machu Picchu, please add the emergency one. That's kind of important. And ensure your laptop and electronics, right? You might be in a hailstorm, or you might be over in Cambodia and there's a typhoon, and yeah, you're gonna need something like that. And create an inventory for all your gear with photo numbers, all that stuff. Put it into a folder, put it into a little safety drive, and protect all of it, right? Because if you don't, guess what's gonna happen? Your insurance company won't know what you took, right? Because what you're gonna do is you're gonna take that list, you're gonna send it to your insurance company before you go on the trips, and then they can have a record of it, right? And then they will insure that part. And again, you know, if you have cloud backup, that kind of helps with all those things. Maybe personal liability, professional indemnity insurance, those also help with those kinds of things. And again, make sure to scan all your key documents. Unfortunately, a lot of people have been going through customs in the US and all their stuff is getting confiscated by some nasty people, right? So when that happens, you don't have anything on you, right? So having that protection in the cloud gives you a way to work with somebody who can help you, right? So, and then any local emergency numbers. So again, your safety wing, all those things, they will email you a whole list of all that stuff. So, financial planning, saving for taxes. Anybody here trying to retire? Because otherwise, we really don't need to kind of cover this part right here. But yeah, pro tip, yeah, emergency fund while you're traveling. Most of you know anything from 3 to 6 months. So, but yes, and then yep, we're not retiring anytime soon, so we can kind of do that. So, toolkit right there. I always say, like, if you don't know who Nomad Capitalist is, definitely discover who that person is, right? Like, go read the books, go look at their websites, maybe attend one of their conferences. Your insurance, financial tools, things like that. Nomad Capitalist basically shows you how to reduce your tax requirements around the world, right? And he's been doing that for a long time now, so. And if you are looking for people to help you with your travel taxes, those are like 3 companies, 3? Yeah, or 2 companies to help you with all that kind of stuff. There are some companies here in Austin, and I've tried reaching out to them, and I guess they had issues or something, because I've never heard back from them, but yeah, they're lost, so. Key takeaways is identify tax residency, set up a business structure, research everything before you go, set up invoicing, payments, and financial tools for planning. So as always, I always close everything out with sort of like book recommendations. So this one right here actually is a guy and a dog who walked the world, right? And he went on a trip. And what's ironic about this is that there is a book called Walk Across America about sort of the same thing about a guy and a dog who walked across America in 1973. And I figured he probably read the book and said, I'm going to do that too. And then How to Win at Travel. Yeah, it's the points guy, so I'm sure you've seen his videos. Yeah. So it kind of helps you kind of keep your costs low for your insurance and anything that's going on. And then the other one, in case you didn't know about this, The Future of No Work, how AI is sort of changing everything. I would definitely say, if you've never read this, definitely check it out, because that's sort of where things are going. So, how I can help you, again, how I do my stuff is, I get you people to basically scale your stuff. Because AI is here, it's kind of like, do you want somebody in person, or do you want an AI tool, right? And that's the conversations I have with people now is, many of them want people still, right? Like, as much as I can build with AI, you'd be surprised how many people still want a human person to talk to, right? They would rather work with somebody that they can still like have a conversation with, who can use AI to do their job better, right? It's interesting, right? Because even though I can build with AI, many people still prefer a person, right? They would rather have you as a web developer than me get an AI tool that builds out their website, right? Because if it messes up, what happens?
They need someone to make them.
It's a gray zone right now, right? Like people want AI, and then when something goes wrong, who can I call?
I think people want speed, and they just wanna make something built really fast,
Of
but when
course.
something goes wrong, they still wanna make it fast.
Yeah, they do. You have a comment or anything, or?
Oh, well, when I code with AI, I see it's like, sometimes the AI doesn't get the nuance of the problem, and it's just like, okay, well now I have to go and actually fix your problem that you can't see that's a real problem.
Yeah. And you know what's funny about that is that my last class, I showcased like Lovable, right? And I thought, man, we're now having AI code and do all this cool stuff. There must be some great projects people are building. And I looked at the top 20 Lovable projects, and it was like a recipe builder, right? Like a fitness tracker. I'm like, this is what we're using AI for? Like, really? Like, come on, you know?
It starts to struggle on really large projects.
Yeah.
So it's mostly people that just do small AI projects are just limited.
Yeah. There was a tool that I showcased in my class how to build SaaS with, right? I thought it was the greatest thing ever. I showed how to build SaaS in my class. I don't know what the company was thinking because they had pivoted to AI agents, right? So they gotten rid of it. And when I showed it in class, somebody watched it and they went home and used the tool that weekend and they built out their entire platform. It was an amazing product. And then they went and just shut it down. So now Lovable comes around and they're just like, hey, we can do that stuff. And Lovable to me is still like, it's still a coding system. Like it can build an app, it can build a website, but it can't do SaaS, right? So the other product, that built SaaS, right? And that's harder to find. I don't know what they were thinking, you know? But that's sort of what I do is I sort of find people that find what it is you're trying to do, right? If I find you somebody who can go out and find all your jobs you're looking for, doesn't that make your life a lot easier? You know? So, if you have more questions, you can scan this, and we can talk further. I always kind of go through with other people, like, you know, what are they struggling with? What are they looking for? I've discovered that many people want more events, right? They want to know where they need to be, you know? I did a podcast recently on how more and more people are looking for things to do outside of their house, right? They want to connect with more people. I have conversations with people about how AI is, in the theory, kind of fixing loneliness. I would argue it's not. Would you agree? Would you not agree?
I agree, it's not. Yeah.
Right.
I think that there have been like cases of people just like experiencing some sort of psychosis because they've just been talking AI for so long.
Yeah. So what happens when that 21-year-old just broke up with somebody and they're by themselves and they're just like, what am I going to do with myself, right? And they can go talk to an AI bot. And they're like, man, this is so much better. Right now I feel like I'm the greatest person in the world, I'm the smartest person in the world, and they just made me feel amazing. It's still an AI chatbot at the end of the day, you know? Have you all seen Westworld?
Yes.
The whole thing?
Yeah.
It surprises you how many people still have not seen that show, right? And yet that's where we're headed, you know? And yet there was a movie of Westworld back in 1978, right? Don't go watch it because you already saw the show, right? But it's the same premise, right? And yet we're making robots now that are becoming more and more like us, right? Did y'all watch the largest robotic conference in China like 2 weeks ago? Did y'all watch that?
Yeah.
Those robots there are incredible, right? And their dexterity is the only thing they're really focusing on is if they can fix this little thing that we as humans have perfected, guess what? They're gonna start doing our jobs a lot better. Did y'all watch the robotics Olympics in China like a month ago? That was incredible, right? Like you're watching robots like box, you're watching them run, like you're having them do all these kind of things, right? And many people still don't realize like how far they've come along, right? So you pair that up with AI, why do I need a human companion when I can have an AI robot at home and that makes me dinner and my bed is clean and my bath is ready to go and the dog is walked and everything's vacuumed and but it's gonna happen because you saw Westworld, you know? It's interesting where things are going, right? So, and that's kind of what I touch on, like, in my other class. If y'all decide to come over, you know, on next Monday, it'll be on the 16th floor. That one will be automation principles. That's what we're covering, right? So tools that basically automate things. So many people are looking forward to that one. As cool as it is, I try to tell people like, yeah, it's great, you can automate if you're a solopreneur, right? But if you're a company and you have, let's say, 50 employees, 100 employees, and you automate, you are going to do some damage, right? Now the company will love you because you saved their bottom line, but yeah, you know. But yeah, if you want to keep in touch, this is my LinkedIn, that's my email, right? So hopefully you got something from this, you know. I will let you know that the sign up was for 20 people. But you know the conversion always happens like that. I can get 50 people, right? And it's something, you know. But yeah, that's the class. And if you want more, then obviously come for the networking around the world. That one's a lot of fun. Like I talked about networking events in Amsterdam, in Bangkok, Sydney, places to check out, you know. And even if you can't physically be there, there's so many virtual networking events around the world, as nomads, right? If I ever lived in New York, I would never be starving. I would know where all the food is all the time. Like even tonight, like there's like what, 15 events going on, right? And at least 5 of them have good food. So.
How do you figure out which ones have the good food?
Because I've been to so many.
Okay, it's just.
I just know.
Okay.
Like if you've ever been to the Indian Chamber of Commerce events, have you ever been to those? They know food. Like it is good food, right? I go to the Indian Chamber of Commerce Christmas parties, right? It's all catered. And the food, like just endless food, right? And then I go to the Greater Asian Chamber of Commerce events for Christmas parties. It's incredible. But I also go because like I don't need to go home and make dinner, right? I'm going to meet 20 new people that are going to add something to my network, right? And it's going to be a lot of fun. You normally win prizes during the Christmas parties. So sometimes I walk home with a $100 gift card, right? And that's why I tell people go network, right? Like I try to encourage a lot of college students, like don't sit in your dorm, go around campus and go find a student organization to be a part of, right? When I was in college, I had wanted to come up with a website that tells you where all the free food was on campus, right? Because every student org had food, right? Did you ever go to the Asian student org on campus at any college? They always have food there. Why? Because Asian parents will cook for their kids and bring in all this food. And I would be like, yes, I'm a part of this, right? And I would go walk around to the engineering school and be like, hey, what is this group right here? Oh, we're the aerospace engineers of such society. Great, I'm here, you know, even though I was not an engineering major, right? I would go to the architect students and be like, hey, what do y'all have going on tonight? And they try to tell me the topic. I say, no, what food do you have going on? You know? And it sounds funny, but it's the fact that like food brings people together, right? Like that's just how we're connected. And I try to get students to understand that. And when you grow up in a house where like you've never thought about food your whole life because you're a kid, food becomes very different after that, you know? So I always tell people like, go to networking events. There's food there, you know? So, but yeah. And if you want to see a packed class next week, you know, it'll be on the 16th floor. We will be covering Zapier, Make, and I will touch a little bit on NAN. But yeah. Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time. Yeah?
It's really interesting.
Yeah?
Yeah, I've been in the job market, like, as a full stack engineer, and it's been kind of messed up, so I've been considering travel again. Education.
Yeah, and make a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, thanks. Yep.